trailer. They picked that song of all the songs. Like, we
For years, Blake Lively and Taylor Swift have been held up as Hollywood's ultimate power duo, glamorous, untouchable, and seemingly above the chaos that swallows so many careers. But behind the curated red carpets, tightly controlled interviews, and carefully deployed girl boss messaging, a very different narrative has begun to surface. One that some insiders say exposes a calculated, high-stakes campaign to silence rivals, reshape narratives, and protect an empire at any cost. At the center of the storm? Justin Baldoni and Scooter Braun, two industry figures who, according to growing allegations and online sleuthing, may have crossed paths with a level of influence they weren't prepared to confront. What's being described in corners of the internet, legal filings, and hushed industry conversations isn't a single dramatic confrontation, but a slow, strategic dismantling, allegedly fueled by reputation warfare, selective leaks, and the weaponization of fandom. A Hollywood alliance with real power. Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are not just celebrities, they are brands with reach extending far beyond entertainment. Swift's fanbase is often described as one of the most mobilized and protective in pop culture history. Lively, meanwhile, has built a reputation as a polished industry insider, someone deeply embedded in studio politics through her own career and her marriage to Ryan Reynolds. Individually, they are formidable. Together, critics argue, they form a cultural force capable of shaping public perception almost instantly. That's why some observers say it's no coincidence that figures who allegedly fell out of favor with either woman found themselves facing sudden reputational headwinds, viral backlash, hostile headlines, and narratives that seemed to harden overnight. Justin Baldoni, from industry darling to online target. Justin Baldoni built his career on empathy-driven storytelling, positioning himself as a progressive male voice in Hollywood. His product show. But according to online speculation and unnamed industry sources, Baldoni's troubles began when creative disagreements and behind-the-scenes conflicts allegedly collided with more powerful interests. Suddenly, his name was being dragged into online debates, with critics questioning his intentions, his messaging, and even his integrity. Supporters argued that the speed and intensity of the backlash felt disproportionate and suspiciously coordinated. No formal wrongdoing has been proven, and Baldoni has denied any malicious intent. Still, the damage, some say, was already done. Scooter Braun, a familiar enemy reemerges. Scooter Braun's long-running conflict with Taylor Swift is well documented. When Braun acquired the masters to Swift's early catalog, it ignited one of the most publicized artist-executive feuds in modern music history. Swift framed the deal as a betrayal, while Braun maintained that it was a legitimate business transaction. Fans overwhelmingly sided with Swift, and Braun's reputation took a major hit. What's notable, critics say, is how that feud evolved beyond a simple contract dispute. Braun didn't just lose public favor, he became a symbol, a villain archetype reinforced repeatedly across media narratives. Some commentators now argue that the Swift-Braun conflict established a playbook, define the opponent as morally corrupt, mobilize public sentiment, and let the pressure do the rest. The alleged playbook. How influence becomes a weapon. According to those critical of Lively and Swift, the pattern is disturbingly consistent. Private disputes remain quiet until leverage is secured. Carefully worded statements frame the other party as unethical or harmful. Sympathetic media coverage amplifies one side of the story. Fan communities swarm social platforms, overwhelming dissent. The accused is forced into silence or defensive. The answer likely depends on where you stand, who you trust, and how much power you believe anyone should have over another person. None of this is illegal. None of it requires explicit coordination. But skeptics argue that when wielded by celebrities with immense reach, it becomes an unofficial form of reputational enforcement. And once the narrative sets in, it's nearly impossible to reverse. Silence as strategy. One of the most controversial aspects of the alleged plot is silence, or rather, selective silence. Swift and Lively rarely address accusations directly. When they do, It's often through carefully crafted language that implies harm without making legally actionable claims. Critics say this creates a vacuum where assumptions flourish and opponents are left fighting ghosts rather than facts. Supporters argue the opposite, that both women are simply protecting themselves in an industry that historically punishes women who speak too plainly. The truth may sit somewhere in between. Industry fear and private whispers. Perhaps the most unsettling claims come from anonymous insiders who describe an environment where few are willing to push back publicly. Once the narrative turns, you're done, one unnamed executive reportedly claimed in online forums. No one wants to be the next target. Whether that fear is justified or exaggerated, the perception alone speaks volumes about how power is understood in modern Hollywood, not just as money or contracts, but as the ability to control discourse. What's actually been proven? It's crucial to draw a line between documented facts and allegations fueled by interpretation. There is no legal ruling stating that Blake Lively or Taylor Swift orchestrated a campaign to destroy anyone. There is no confirmed evidence of criminal conspiracy. What exists instead is a pattern that critics believe raises serious ethical questions about influence, accountability, and unchecked cultural power. In the court of public opinion, perception often matters more than proof. A cultural reckoning brewing? As audiences grow more skeptical of celebrity narratives, the